Welcome to part 5. In this part, we'll discuss sourcing breeding stock and how to locate breeding stock with the superior genetic merit. Now that we know how to identify goals, establish selection priorities, utilize selection tools, and identify traits of importance, we now need to go find those sheep or those goats that are going to make a difference in our breeding programs. First, we need to determine benchmarks. What is the threshold of acceptability? So what traits do we want to maintain? What traits might we be already good at? What traits are we already at a level of performance, level of production that we're happy with? And maybe we just want to maintain those traits versus what traits that do we need improvements? Where do we need to make progress and apply greater selection pressure? We can utilize percentile reports to help us do this. Percentile reports for all of the breeds in NSIP can be found on the NSIP searchable database at the following link. As an example, we will use a Katahdin percentile report from September 2021. The percentile reports, as shown here, have the ranking for each individual EBV and where they fall relative to the breed. So on the left, you have the relative percentile going from the 0th percentile or the very bottom of the breed up to the 100th percentile or the very top of the breed. And then we have each EBV and where they fall. The 50th percentile is breed average. The 50th percentile would be where 50% of the animals within the breed are above those values for those given traits, and 50% of the individuals within the breed are below those values for those different traits. We'll walk through an example of how we can establish these benchmarks, utilize the percentile report, and then I identify and locate an individual that we would like to use for our breeding program. So we've determined that we need a ram that meets the following benchmarks. This ram needs to be in the top 30% of the breed for milk production, the top 25% of the breed for weaning weights, the top 10% of the breed for parasite resistance, and the top 25% of the breed for their hair index. We need to find an individual that's in the top 30% for milk. Remember, milk is represented by maternal weaning weights. So it needs to be in the 70th percentile or better for maternal weaning weights. So we need a ram that has a maternal weaning weight EBV of at least 0.58. Weaning weight, we would like a ram that's in the top 25% of the breed for weaning weights. So we need in the 75th percentile or better. So we need a ram that's at least 2.11 for its weaning weight EBV. Parasite resistance is one that we've trait that we've identified that we really need to improve. So we're going to place a lot of selection pressure on parasite resistance. So we need an individual that's in the top 10% of the breed. We need a more genetically elite individual so that we have a greater selection differential, so that we have greater selection intensity, so we can make more progress, more improvement in that trait. Parasite resistance is going to be represented by the weaning fecal egg count as well as the post-weaning fecal egg count. Here we want an individual in the top 10% of the breed. So we need an individual that's at least negative 91.6 on weaning fecal egg count and negative 98.7 on post-weaning fecal egg count. And then we need an individual that's in the top 25% of the breed for the hair index. So an individual that's at least 107 for that hair index, or in the top 75th percentile. We've determined what those benchmarks are. Based on where we want that individual to rank in the breed, we've determined the minimum threshold EBVs for each one of those traits of importance. So now we can go to the NSIP searchable database. In the NSIP searchable database, not only can we search for an individual ram or an individual ewe, but we can also sort throughout the entire breed to find individuals that meet our benchmarks. In the general information page, we have breed groups. So in this case, we have the hair group because we're interested in Katahdins in this scenario. We select our breed. We can select individuals that are born after a certain date or before a certain date. We can also select for one sex or another. So in this case, we're going to look for rams. So we're going to select for males. We can include only proven animals or not. So these proven animals are animals that have progeny records already. And so we're going to put those factors in. We're looking for a Katahdin ram. We then go to the EBV ranges section. And in this section, we can establish parameters that we want the database to search within. So we established our benchmarks. We know that our weaning weight needs to be at least 2.11. We know that our maternal weaning weight needs to be at least 0.58. We know that for parasite resistance, we want an individual that's better than negative 91 for weaning fecal egg count, better than negative 98 for post-weaning fecal egg count. Remember, negative values for fecal egg count are good. That's a reduction in fecal egg count. So we want an individual that's lower than negative 91, negative 98. That would be more parasite resistance. And we need a minimum hair index of at least 107. So we're looking for an individual that's 107 or better on their hair index. So we put those parameters in. We then click on Find Results, Update Results, and it's going to spit out each ram within the breed, within the Katahdin breed, that meet our parameters. And for this scenario, there's actually only 3 rams in the whole breed that meets our benchmarks. Those rams are listed here. Each ram is listed with their ID, along with their EBVs for a variety of different traits. If we click on the View Details tab at this point, it will bring us to more information about that specific individual, along with contact information for their breeder. If we're interested in that ram, we can then reach out to that breeder. Usually the email and phone number are provided on that tab. We can contact that individual and see if that ram is available for sale and inquire about purchasing that individual for our breeding program. So this NSIFP searchable database can be a great tool for locating breeding stock that meets the genetic parameters, the genetic requirements, those benchmarks that we want for our flock. In addition to the searchable database, some other things to keep in mind. We need to find a reliable breeder, and we need to find someone that we can work well with, someone that we trust and recognize their breeding program, one that is breeding and raising sheep in an environment that's similar to ours, so that we know those animals are going to perform. Obviously, if I'm in a grass-based parasite-rich environment in the deep south, I'm not necessarily going to go and buy a ram from a feedlot-based production system in the upper Midwest, because that ram obviously does not have the exposure to parasites, heat, humidity that we need that individual to be exposed to. So while those EBVs are relatable across flocks across the country, we need to keep in mind some of those environmental factors in terms of adaptability and practicality for animals to be able to work, to thrive, to live in the environment that we expect them to live in. In terms of locating a breeder, besides just the searchable database, the Eastern Alliance for Production Katahdin's website does have a directory where they have a map of the whole U.S. and a variety of different breeders that has their contact information there as well. That can be a tool that you can utilize. Different breed producer associations also have contact lists, so you can reach out to them if there's a specific breed you're interested in or a specific producer group you're looking at working with. They're going to have information about breeders that work with them that raise that type of sheep that should work for your scenario and your production system. Extension website, social media is also a great place to look, and you can find breeding stock in those sources as well. Develop relationships, work with these breeders, understand their production systems, their management systems, what priorities are important to them. Develop that relationship, and that relationship can be a long-term partnership, relationship, friendship that can build, and you can work together to establish a breeding program and move your flocks in the direction you'd like to move. Some other things in addition to just genetics that we want to pay attention to, we need to evaluate feet and legs. These animals have to be able to work and function, go out and breed females. Foot scald or foot rot can be a major issue and can be extremely contagious, and is something that we certainly want to minimize any chance of introducing to our farms if we don't have it, or minimize the spread. So we can keep records here, who requires treatment, when are they treated, are the same individuals being treated multiple times. Culling can be a great practice to select for greater resistance to foot scald or foot rot. Those chronic limpers are ones that it's best if they just leave the farm so that we don't have to worry about any more situations with them and they don't have the chance of spreading it to other individuals. While genetic metrics such as EBVs are not available for resistance or susceptibility to foot issues, selection culling decisions can be a valuable and useful tool to improve some of the resistance and minimize the occurrence of foot issues within the flock. So we need to make sure we have sound feet and legs that are clean and clear of foot scald, foot rot. Any issues that we are having, we want to select against those issues cull those individuals, remove those individuals from the flock so that they don't continue to perpetuate and spread that disease. We also need to evaluate udders. We need sound functional udders so that we have a productive, healthy flock. An udder is, in some senses, the moneymaker. We need those females to be able to raise the lambs, raise the kids. And if they don't have a sound functional udder, they're not going to be able to do so. In many cases, bottle lambs are not economically very valuable. And so we need those females to be able to raise those lambs or kids on their own. And it takes a sound udder to do that. Both sides of the udder should be functional. Any females that we're interested in purchasing, we need to make sure, especially if they're mature, already had a lamb crop or two, we need to evaluate those udders for any signs of mastitis. Hard bags, any redness, heat, enlarged teats, unevenness of those bags, and make sure they have a sound, symmetrical, soft udder that's going to be productive, that's going to be useful, and those females are going to be functional from that standpoint. That's very important to making sure we have a functional and productive female base to our flock. And then make a sound investment. You have to spend money to make money. It does take an investment, and investing in high quality genetics is going to take sometimes a substantial financial investment. But at the same time, if we're smart and we think about and we plan ahead and we make well thought out, informed decisions, that investment in those high quality genetics should create a positive return for that investment. We need to utilize all the tools available to us. We need to utilize records, estimated breeding values, get a breeding status exam done on any rams that are being purchased, make sure they're functional, that they have that breeding capacity, that when you purchase them, not only do they have that genetic merit themselves, but when you bring them home, they're able to go and get those females pregnant and transmit that genetic potential onto offspring for you. And again, find a reliable source, someone that you can trust and work with that's going to stay true to their word and provide a high quality seed stock to you as a producer. And then we need to manage that new investment. Quarantine pen, a 3 to 4 week isolation period can be very beneficial in minimizing the amount of disease transfer, whether it be foot scald or parasites, to your flock. And so when you bring a new animal onto your farm, give them some time, keep them up close where you can keep a good eye on them and make sure that they're staying healthy and treat them for any issues that they may have. In terms of nutrition, maintain that body condition score 3 to 3.5 on those males. As we approach that breeding season, those males, we want to shoot for around a 3.5 on that body condition score. We don't need obese individuals, but we certainly need individuals that have some condition on them so that they're ready to go out and breed ewes. Transition diets are important as you bring that new animal onto your farm. Speak with the seller about what the previous diet was. Allow time for change and adaptation to whatever diet you're going to provide to them. Don't just change things overnight. Slow, gradual changes are preferred. And in terms of housing, again, speak with the seller, understand the previous environment that individual was exposed to. Were they housed in confinement before? Were they on pasture? And house them in a way that allows for them to best get acclimated to their new environment. And then again, slow transitions. If you're going to move them from confinement out to pasture, keep a close eye on them for any developments of parasite issues, make sure they're maintaining their body condition, etc. Allow time for that animal to adjust and adapt to their new environment. Take care of that new investment, manage that new investment so you can get the most return for the investment that you went out and purchased.